Now that we've covered some of the basics of the short field approach and landing, it is time to take an in-depth look at the procedures required for the maneuver. A short field approach and landing is used at fields where the runway distance is relatively short, or the approach is made over obstacles that limit the available runway for landing. As with all other maneuvers, there are certain criteria that you will be expected to meet for the end-of-course check ride. As with any other type of landing, you must first prepare your airplane by completing the descent checklist prior to beginning your approach. This will ensure that the airplane is set up and will keep you from any extra distractions. Hello? Mom, I can't talk right now. I'm kind of in the middle of something. Yeah, no, I'm in the booth. I'm recording right now. Can I call you back? All right, fine. No, yeah. Yes. I love you too. All right, yeah, I'll call you in a little bit. That will keep you from any extra distractions during your final approach. As you approach the airport, use either the traffic pattern procedure outlined earlier or the instructions given to you by ATC to position the airplane on downwind and select the point on the runway where you intend to land. This point could be a particular runway stripe or marking, or even the intersection of an adjacent taxiway. Remember that your aiming point needs to allow you to safely remain clear of any obstacles on the final approach path, while leaving you enough remaining runway to safely bring the airplane to a stop. Prior to departing on your flight, you should have calculated both the ground roll distance and total distance to clear a 50-foot obstacle. Planning your approach and touchdown point is critical for this maneuver because the short field approach and landing is all about accuracy. Since the goal of this maneuver is to accurately land the airplane on or just beyond your aiming point, you should be making small adjustments during your final approach to keep the airplane tracking toward your aiming point. For example, if it appears that you are too high and will land beyond your aiming point, you will have to simultaneously reduce power and lower the nose. This will allow you to increase your rate of descent while maintaining your desired approach airspeed. If, on the other hand, you appear to be too low and will land short of your point, simultaneously increase power and raise the pitch slightly to reduce your rate of descent without gaining excessive airspeed. Carrying excess speed into the flare will cause the airplane to float through the landing. If you're landing on a short runway, the last thing you want to do is touch down without enough runway surface remaining to safely stop. Allowing the airplane to become too slow is equally as undesirable, however, because you could find yourself operating without sufficient power to overcome the excessive drag. This could result in a stall, or very hard landing. Once you're on final approach and a safe landing is assured, set the flaps to 30 degrees and adjust your airspeed to 61 knots plus half the gust factor. At this point, the airplane will be operating behind the power curve, so it is important to maintain a stabilized approach. Make all of your callouts as you would for any other landing. Runway 23, verify. Stay around. Compared to a normal approach and landing, the roundout and flare for a short field should be executed somewhat differently. Begin your roundout earlier, around the top of the trees, and this time slowly and continuously reduce the power to idle, while at the same time increasing the pitch to maintain the same glide path directly toward your aiming point. This type of approach and landing can be tricky to master, so look for visual cues to help you determine when and how to flare. The first visual cue you will notice is that the runway will begin to flatten out in front of you. Up until this point, you have been looking down at the runway. Once you reach that same altitude as the top of the trees, where you begin the roundout, you will see less and less of the surface of the earth in the distance. This same point is when you want to transition your focus out towards the end of the runway. If you focus your eyes too closely to the nose of the airplane, you will tend to have a flat and firm landing. Keep your eyes out towards the horizon and use your peripheral vision to spot the location of your aiming point. As you flare the airplane, be sure that the power is at idle and continue to smoothly increase the pitch. Your airspeed should decrease as you do so, and you may even begin to hear the stall horn. This decrease in speed and increase in pitch will allow you to touch down on the main wheels at minimum controllable airspeed with little to no float and the airplane in the power-off stall pitch attitude. Visually, you should be touching down with the nose of the airplane touching the tops of the trees in the distance. This will be high enough to keep you from landing on the nose wheel, while at the same time aiding in aerodynamic braking after the mains have touched down. Once the mains are down, allow the nose wheel to gently touch down and retract the flaps to 0. This will help transfer the weight of the airplane from the wings to the wheels and will allow the brakes to work at maximum capacity. Continue to pull back smoothly on the yoke until it is fully aft so that the elevator works as an aerodynamic brake. At the same time, apply the maximum braking required to bring the airplane safely to a stop without skidding the tires. The last thing you want is to blow out a tire on the runway. Maintain directional control with the rudder pedals, and remember to increase any crosswind corrections as the airplane slows and transitions from flight to taxi. Now that we've covered how to fly the maneuver, let's look at the end goals for your skills for a short field approach and landing. Some of the standards for the end-of-course check ride include: complete the appropriate approach and landing checklist. Consider the wind conditions, landing surface, and obstructions to select a suitable touchdown point. Establish the recommended approach and landing configuration and airspeed, and adjust pitch attitude and power as required. Maintain a stabilized approach and recommended airspeed with wind gust factor applied, +10 or -5 knots. Touch down smoothly at an appropriate airspeed. Touch down within the available runway, at or within 200 feet beyond the specified point, with no side drift, minimum float, and with the airplane's longitudinal axis aligned with and over the runway centerline. Maintain crosswind correction and directional control throughout the approach and landing sequence as required. Execute a safe and timely go-around decision when the approach cannot be made within the tolerances specified above or for any other condition that may result in an unsafe approach or landing. Apply brakes as necessary to stop in the shortest distance consistent with safety.